My name is Ramesh Sharma. I want to tell you a story about a father's love, a son's betrayal, and a revenge that was sweeter than anything I could have imagined. For 40 years, I believed I had everything a man could want. I built my business from a small shop into a company worth crores of rupees, but my real pride wasn't my business success. No, my real wealth was my family, my beautiful wife Anjali and our 2 sons Raj and Rohan. I remember when the boys were small, how they would wait for me at the door every evening. Their little faces would light up when they saw me. "Papa, Papa!" they would shout, running into my arms. In those moments, after a long day of work, all my tiredness would vanish. I promised them then that I would give them everything I never had, and I kept that promise. When Raj wanted to study business in America, I didn't think twice about paying the huge fees. When Rohan wanted the latest car for his birthday, I bought it without hesitation. Their happiness was my happiness. Their success was my success. But as they grew older, something began to change. The phone calls that used to come every day became weekly, then monthly. Their visits home became shorter, more rushed. They were always busy, important meetings, business trips, social events. When they did visit, their eyes were always on their phones, their minds somewhere else. My wife Anjali would try to comfort me. "They're successful men now, Ramesh," she would say. "This is what happens when children grow up." I wanted to believe her. I told myself this was normal. But deep in my heart, I felt a coldness growing, a distance that grew wider with each passing year. The truth hit me like a physical blow when I turned 60. We had a big birthday party at a fancy hotel. All our friends and relatives were there. Raj and Rohan gave beautiful speeches about what a wonderful father I was. People were moved to tears, but I saw something in their eyes that scared me. Their words felt empty, like lines from a script they had memorized. Later that night, I went out to the garden for some fresh air. That's when I heard them talking near the fountain. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but their words stopped me in my tracks. "Once the old man transfers the business to us, we can finally modernize everything," Raj was saying. "His methods are so outdated," Rohan laughed. "I know. He still believes in trust and personal relationships. In today's world, it's all about profit and expansion." I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. Old-fashioned, outdated. These were the same values that had built the business that put food on our table, that sent them to the best schools, that gave them everything they had. But the worst was yet to come. A few months later, I started having chest pains. The doctor said it was probably just stress, but he wanted to keep me in the hospital overnight for observation. I was scared, more scared than I wanted to admit. The first person I called was Raj. The phone rang 6 times before he answered. "Papa, I'm in the middle of something important." "Can this wait?" he said, his voice impatient. My heart sank. "Beta, I'm in the hospital." "The doctor," he cut me off. "Is it serious?" "Look, I have a client meeting that I absolutely cannot miss. Let me send Rohan, okay?" "Don't worry." Before I could say anything else, he hung up. My hands were trembling as I dialed Rohan's number. The phone went straight to voicemail. "The number you are calling is currently switched off." I put the phone down and stared at the white hospital walls. 1 hour passed, then 2. The nurses came and went, checking my blood pressure, asking if I needed anything. I just shook my head, my eyes fixed on the door, hoping to see my sons walk through it. 5 hours later, the sun had set and my room was dark. The only person sitting with me was Anjali. She held my hand, her face pale with worry. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. The silence between us said everything. The disappointment, the hurt, the crushing realization that we were alone in this world. The next morning, Rohan finally showed up. He looked fresh and well-dressed, but there was no concern in his eyes. "Papa, you gave us quite a scare," he said, but he was already looking at his phone. "Next time, maybe just call the doctor directly instead of panicking. You know how busy we are with the new expansion." In that moment, something inside me broke. The love I had carried for my sons all these years, the pride I felt in their accomplishments, it all shattered like glass. I saw clearly what I had become to them. Not a father to be loved, but a problem to be managed. When I returned home from the hospital, the house felt different. The expensive paintings on the walls, the marble floors, the crystal chandeliers, none of it meant anything anymore. It was just empty space, filled with memories of what I thought my family was. The final betrayal came about a month later. I was in my study when I heard Raj and Rohan talking in the living room. They thought I was taking my afternoon nap. The old man is becoming a liability, Raj said, his voice low. Did you see the quarterly reports? Profits are down 15% since he started getting more involved again. I know, Rohan replied. We need to convince him to sign over power of attorney. He's too old to manage things now. He's become a burden. That word echoed in my ears. Burden. After everything I had done for them, after all the love and sacrifice, I was a burden. The pain was so sharp I actually pressed my hand against my chest, wondering if I was having another heart attack. But then, something surprising happened. The pain turned into something else, a cold, hard determination. I wasn't going to let them treat me this way. My life's work would not go to people who saw me as a burden. The next day, I went to see my lawyer, Mr. Malhotra. We had been friends for 30 years. When I told him I wanted to change my will, his eyes widened in shock. Ramesh, what are you saying? He asked. If not Raj and Rohan, then who? You have no other family. I looked out the window of his office, watching the people hurry along the street below. I don't know yet, old friend, I said quietly. But I will find someone who will value what I built, not just for the money, but for what it can do. That evening, instead of going straight home to my empty mansion, I drove aimlessly around the city. I found myself in a neighborhood I rarely visited. Crowded, noisy, filled with the energy of people who actually lived their lives instead of just accumulating wealth. And that's when I saw him. A young man, not much older than my son, sitting under a streetlight with a dozen small children gathered around him. He was writing on a small, worn blackboard, teaching them basic English. The children were hanging on his every word. I parked my car and watched for a while. There was something about him, a kindness in his eyes, a genuine warmth in his smile. When the lesson ended and the children ran off, I approached him. That was very impressive, I said. Why do you do this? He looked up at me, wiping chalk dust from his hands. Sir, someone once helped me when I had nothing. Now it's my turn to help these children. Education is the only way out of poverty for them. His name was Arjun, he told me. He worked as a mechanic in a local garage during the day. In the evenings, he taught these children for free. He dreamed of building a proper school someday. As I drove home that night, I couldn't stop thinking about Arjun. Here was a young man with nothing, giving everything he had. And my own sons, who had everything, gave nothing but their contempt. Little did I know then that this young man would become the instrument of my revenge and the salvation of my soul. That chance meeting with Arjun under the streetlight became a turning point in my life. I started visiting that neighborhood every evening, watching him teach from my car. There was a purity in his actions that called to something deep within me, the memory of the man I used to be, before money and success hardened my heart. One evening, I gathered my courage and approached him properly. I want to help, I told him simply. The surprise on his face was genuine. Help how, uncle? He asked. I offered to buy proper books, notebooks, even a new blackboard. His eyes lit up like I had offered him a treasure chest. The children would be so happy, he said, his voice filled with genuine emotion. Not the fake, polished gratitude I was used to from business associates, but real, heartfelt appreciation. That's how our unusual friendship began. I started coming earlier to help him set up, carrying the small wooden boxes that served as seats for the children. At first, the children were shy around this well-dressed old man, but children see truth in ways adults have forgotten. Soon they were calling me Grandpa Sir and showing me their notebooks with proud smiles. As weeks turned into months, I learned more about Arjun's story. He was an orphan who had grown up on the streets, sleeping in railway stations and temple courtyards. A kind priest had taught him to read and write, and that small act of kindness had changed the course of his life. That priest saw something in me when everyone else saw just another street kid. Arjun told me one evening, his voice soft with memory. He taught me that every child deserves a chance. I began teaching Arjun about business, not from textbooks, but from life. How to manage money, how to plan for the future, how to turn a small idea into something lasting. He was the most eager student I had ever encountered. He asked thoughtful questions, remembered everything I taught him, and most importantly, he understood the why behind the what, something my own sons had never bothered to learn. Meanwhile, at home, the situation with Raj and Rohan was reaching its breaking point. They had hired a business consultant, a slick, expensive man from abroad, to streamline my company. They didn't even consult me. I found out when the man showed up at my office unannounced asking to see outdated operational procedures. The confrontation happened in my own living room. Raj and Rohan sat across from me like business partners rather than sons. "Papa, it's time," Raj said, his voice firm. "You need to sign over control to us. The business is suffering under your traditional methods." Rohan placed a folder on the coffee table between us. "We've prepared the power of attorney documents. Everything is ready for your signature." I looked from one son to the other, seeing the strangers they had become. "And if I refuse?" I asked quietly. Rohan's face hardened. "Then we'll have no choice but to call an emergency board meeting. The other shareholders are concerned about the declining profits. It would be better for everyone if you stepped down gracefully." The word shareholders hit me like a physical blow. I had given them those shares as gifts over the years, never imagining they would use them against me. That night I didn't sleep. I sat in my dark study, surrounded by photographs of happier times: Raj's graduation, Rohan's wedding, family vacations when the boys were young. The faces in those photographs bore no resemblance to the cold, ambitious men who had confronted me earlier. As dawn broke, I made my decision. I called Mr. Malhotra first thing in the morning. "It's time," I told him. "Prepare the new will exactly as we discussed." Then I called Arjun. "Meet me at Mr. Malhotra's office today," I said. "And wear your best clothes. We're going to make your dream come true." The scene in Mr. Malhotra's office was one I will never forget. Arjun arrived looking nervous in a slightly too big suit he had borrowed for the occasion. Mr. Malhotra explained the documents we were about to sign. I was transferring my entire estate, every property, every business holding, every investment, into the Shiksha Sayog Trust with Arjun as its chairman and managing trustee. "Are you sure about this, Ramesh?" Mr. Malhotra asked me one last time, his eyes serious. "This is irreversible." I looked at Arjun, seeing the confusion and awe in his eyes. "I have never been more sure of anything in my life," I said. As I signed the papers, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders that I hadn't even known I was carrying. This wasn't just revenge anymore. This was redemption. The final months of my life were the happiest I had known in years. Arjun and I worked side by side, planning the school that would become my true legacy. We chose the location, the old warehouse that had been my first business property. We met with architects, planned classrooms, and imagined the future. For the first time since my sons were little boys, I felt excited to wake up each morning. Raj and Rohan, suspicious of my sudden happiness, hired private investigators to follow me. When they discovered I was spending all my time with a street mechanic, as they called him, they confronted me one last time. "What are you playing at, Papa?" Raj demanded. "People are talking. They're saying you're losing your mind." I looked at my sons calmly. For the first time in years, I told them, "I have found my purpose. And it has nothing to do with either of you." The heart attack that finally took me came quietly in my sleep. I like to think I died with a smile on my face, dreaming of children learning and laughing in the school I had built. The reading of the will was everything I had imagined it would be. Raj and Rohan arrived looking confident, dressed in their most expensive suits. They sat in the front row of Mr. Malhotra's conference room, already planning how they would divide my empire between them. When Mr. Malhotra read the terms of the new will, the room went completely silent for a moment, followed by explosive fury. "This is illegal!" Raj screamed, jumping to his feet. "The old man was senile. He was manipulated." Rohan pointed a shaking finger at Arjun, who sat quietly in the corner. This street thug brainwashed our father. We'll fight this in court." "We'll destroy you." Arjun stood up then, and I wish I could have seen it. My lawyer told me later that he faced my sons with a dignity they could never understand. "Your father was the sanest man I ever knew," Arjun said, his voice calm but firm. He wasn't senile. He was heartbroken. "He told me how you left him alone in the hospital. How you called him a burden. He gave me this responsibility not because he hated you, but because I saw him as a human being, not as a bank account. The legal battles that followed were long and bitter, but my will was ironclad. Mr. Malhotra had made sure of that. My sons spent lakhs of rupees trying to break the trust, but they failed. In the end, they got exactly what they had given me in my final years. Nothing. Today, if you visit the city where I built my fortune, You won't find any monuments to Raj and Rohan Sharma. But if you go to the old industrial area, you'll find the Ramesh Sharma Memorial School. It's a beautiful 3-story building where laughter echoes through bright, airy classrooms. Poor children receive free education, books, uniforms, and meals, everything they need to dream big dreams. Arjun runs the school with the same compassion and dedication he showed when teaching under that streetlight. He married a wonderful teacher he met at the school, and they have a little boy they named Ramesh. Every year on my birthday, they bring the child to visit my grave. "Say hello to your grandpa," Arjun tells the little boy. "So you see, this isn't just a story of revenge. It's a story of how I found my true son when I had lost all hope. How I discovered that family isn't always about blood. It's about who holds your hand when you need it most. Who sees the person behind the possessions. Who loves you not for what you can give them, but for who you are. My sons chose not to hold my hand when I needed them, and in the end that choice cost them everything. But it gave me the greatest gift of all, a legacy that will live on in the hearts and minds of generations of children. And that, my friends, is a revenge more beautiful than I ever could have imagined."